Welcome aboard, everyone. Thank you very much for being here. As this is my first briefing this week, I'd like to wish Christians a blessed Holy Week and Jewish people all around the world a happy Passover. And now, today, as anti-Semitism surges around the world, our message to Jewish communities remains unchanged. The United States stands with you. We will fight anti-Semitism with unwavering determination. We will advocate for the safety and security of Jews everywhere. Last, in non-foreign policy news, I want to applaud the Trump administration's FDA on their plan to phase out various animal testing requirements. As the FDA said in their announcement, quote, "The new approach is designed to improve drug safety and accelerate the evaluation process while reducing animal experimentation, lowering research and developmental costs, and ultimately lowering drug prices." Bravo.
I just wanted just a point of clarification. You said that only President Trump can undo the damage done to the world, the nation and the world by the global left.
I know, surprising that it comes from me, isn't it? Surprising that comes from me.
This has to do with, you're talking about tariffs, right? The whole world free trade, international trade regulations, which began after the Second World War.
Well,
I'm looking at one Eisenhower to Nixon, Reagan, Bush,
Matt, may I answer you? I know.
Bush two,
Yes.
and I'm.
Yes.
Well,
you know, there's something. Let me answer you, sir. Let me answer you. Let me answer you. Everything that starts, like World Trade, there's always a good idea, right? You always have a really great plan, and things move along, and it's very good and it's very nice. And then time changes, and the left gets control of certain aspects, certain countries, certain Congresses, and things begin to change, and spending begins to increase, and arrangements begin to change, and are not necessarily as good for the United States. The fact of the matter is, at this point in time, we are on an unsustainable path, a burden that is crushing. You see it in the actions that this administration has to take regarding the budget of this entire entity. This becomes an addiction. It's an addiction to other people's money. And as Margaret Thatcher noted, of course, is that the main problem with socialism, sir, the main problem with socialism is that when you run out of other people's money. Because that eventually happens. I know that's not perhaps satisfactory for the Associated Press. But I love you anyway, Matt. I love you anyway. But your question is, at least my answer to what your statement was, is that at this point in time, President Trump is the only person that can undo the Leviathan that this trade framework became around the world, and he's doing it. And I've been watching this coverage, the pearl clutching. It's been remarkable. This is going to be one of the greatest resets of many resets that the Trump administration has implemented, and it's going to make a difference not just for the American people, but for all those countries that realize that this has to change. So it'll be better for the world over.
So on the grants that you just said were canceled, and I want to seg from this, can you be more specific about what those were, the two, what was it, 139?
Well, we'll get those details. What we do know is that the secretary himself felt passionate enough about this to tweet it himself.
Oh, he did?
And that what I stated to you about his commentary was from his account, the secretary's tweet, at 12:35 p.m. this afternoon. And I'll read it again because there's a couple more details here in the tweet. Under my direction, the State Department has canceled another 139 grants worth $214 million. The American taxpayers should not be funding misguided programs like building the migrant domestic worker-led movement in Lebanon or get the trolls out in the United Kingdom. We are cleaning up the mess the previous administration left and rebuilding an agency that's focused on putting America first. So those are two examples that the Secretary shared. There are, because I'm a mathematician, 137 more. And I'm sure at some point we will, I believe that, I'll tell you what, let's see if we can find the full list. And we'll move ahead accordingly.
So, and that just segs into the broader budget question. You saw the reports yesterday and the day before about the OMB plans for a drastic reduction in the State Department, or the Function 150 budget, which includes state and USAID. What can you tell us about that? Those?
I can tell you that throughout the history of the United States, everyone has a budget plan. And everyone has ideas for budgets. And every president has a budget plan and sends it to Congress. And then Congress either accepts it or they have their own ideas, which happens more often than not. I can tell you that whatever you've seen in public was not released from this entity, was not released from this department. It was not released by the secretary. That there is no final plan, final budget, final dynamic. That is up to the White House and the President of the United States as they continue to work on their budget plan and what they will submit to Congress. So I would suggest that you check with the White House. But the kinds of numbers, and what we tend to see is reporting that is early or wrong or based on leaked documents from somewhere unknown, and then everyone writes stories about those things. And earlier, when I was speaking with our bullpen here, whom I love most of the time, it would be wise to be cautious before acting on every single element you see leading up to something as important as this budget coming in from President Trump. So we'll wait and see. Of course, again, these are not known or finalized or planned. Only President Trump has that information, and we're going to see it soon, I'm sure.
Okay.
There was some criticism from Democratic lawmakers about contributions to international organizations dropping by 89% from $1.4 billion last year to $169 million, including, quote, eliminating funding for the UN and NATO. Is that something that the department is considering, eliminating funding from those agencies?
You know, that's from a story that is looking at a memo that was leaked or not from a plan that is a suggestion. What I can tell you, though, is it really makes me concerned when I see the word eliminate. I traveled to NATO for that summit with the secretary. Every meeting, every moment, every time on camera, in every bilateral meeting, talking with the Secretary General, the one message, it was with several messages, but the singularly important message that everyone there cared about was the fact that the Secretary of State of the United States reiterated our complete commitment to NATO, as has the President of the United States. Now, what we also want in our commitment means that we want to make sure and help to make sure that the nations in NATO can actually deliver on the mission of NATO, which is to be a deterrent. It is not to help with wars or to help fight them or to fund them or to make it a little bit better as the wars are going on. NATO was meant to be a collection of entities that would stop the bad actors from doing the bad thing, because it would be very, very bad for them if they did it. And at this point, clearly, we've got nations that have got to ramp up, share the burden, increase their defense spending, not because we're meanies, but because we are committed to NATO. And NATO has to be the thing that it has been purported to be and expected to be at the beginning and wants to be. I have to tell you that there was recognition of this fact. At NATO, the number of countries increasing their budget commitment to defense, the recognition that it was an important thing, without exception. And that's where, when we think about a story about eliminating funding to NATO, couldn't be further from the truth. This is about making NATO stronger, making NATO, well, dare I say, great again. But that's where it becomes like fear-mongering and understandably upsets people. But as I've said with the other review we've had with the foreign aid, some things will change, but it doesn't mean that we've changed our commitment to something, but it may look different. That if, in fact, other nations are coming together and raising their commitment and their contribution, perhaps the American contribution then does come down, and yet NATO is stronger. So that is, I think, part of what every family does, is looking out for each other, being honest, and providing solutions to that problem. So that story comes from the same speculation that has come from other documents that are moving about, when nothing could be further from the truth, and certainly commenting on numbers they might have is not helpful. There will be plenty to discuss when President Trump releases and sends to Congress his budget bill.
You started out with some of your remarks saying that Iran must stop and dismantle its nuclear program.
Well, let me say that was Ambassador Witkoff.
Yeah, echoing what Ambassador Witkoff tweeted earlier today. But just trying to get some clarity on what the administration sees as a potential end goal here with these negotiations with Iran, because last week, heading into the talks in Oman, Witkoff made some remarks to the Wall Street Journal in which he said that the red line would be the weaponization of Iran's nuclear capability, presumably leaving the door open to Iran maintaining a civilian nuclear program. So is the administration open to an end state where Iran does still have a civilian nuclear program, but they are no longer able to speedily get a nuclear weapon?
Well, first of all, for a comprehensive response, and we heard from Caroline earlier, the White House has that kind of response. What I can say, nevertheless, is that the Secretary has been clear, as has the President, as has been the Ambassador, that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon or an enrichment program. What we hear, and I said this again to our friends earlier in the day, as I do, some of you listening from home, I kind of spend about a half hour with our bullpen during the day, and we have some talks and find out what's on their mind. But what I mentioned, because there's always a reaction to a single tweet or a remark that's in a newspaper. And as we are clearly moving to a secondary meeting, which I still won't call a negotiation, but that could change, is that these are people who are the best in the world. Ambassador Witkoff clearly is one of the best people in the world for negotiating and for dealing with bad actors and getting peace and ceasefires. But when things are being said in the moment, in public, it is, you must consider that these are not, that's not part of how they negotiate in the sense of whatever they're talking about together. And that one should always wait and see that no one's negotiating in public. No one is, I don't know who that message would be for or the nature of what's said and how and what format. I would say what matters is an end result, our parties agreeing, papers being signed. It is not what people say, but the actions they take. We have shown that as a nation when the actions that we take and the nature of what we commit to, you can combine the two of what we say and what we do. But I would say that there's one goal here, and that is that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, and certainly or the enrichment program, and that is, I think, a pretty easy thing to start with, and that is the one thing that we know that they're working on, and I think we'll have some success considering who we're addressing.
Tammy, thanks so much. A couple questions on the Palestinian Authority. The Times of Israel reported a few days ago that Mahmoud Abbas had sent a letter to Secretary Rubio trying to open up the door to get certified that the pay-for-slay program has been ended by the Palestinian Authority. I know you're not going to comment on that correspondence, but in a broader perspective, the State Department is not exactly doling out foreign aid with any enthusiasm at the moment, and the purpose of ending pay-for-slay would be to restart foreign aid to the Palestinian Authority. So does the State Department have any appetite at this point to start that process if the end result is no foreign aid being distributed in the end anyway? And the second question I have is just the broader bird's eye view relationship right now between the U.S. and the Palestinian Authority. You know, Mahmoud Abbas boycotted during the first Trump term, and we've seen American officials go to Jerusalem a number of times. Historically, they made a corresponding trip to Ramallah or Bethlehem. We haven't seen that so far. So bird's eye view.
I think I always try to give you the bird's eye view. But I would say that, first of all, I can't comment on if there are any negotiations or diplomatic considerations. What I do take issue with immediately is that we don't have any glee or excitement over handing out foreign aid. Our commitment to foreign aid hasn't changed. It is in our nature as Americans. It's what we do. I would argue the starting of this country was an aid package for the future. My goodness. And it certainly is also, foreign aid is not a carrot or a stick in negotiations. If it's needed, it's needed. If it isn't, it isn't. We don't use it in that fashion. So it's, I like you very much, and I think you're a nice guy. But it's always disheartening. I don't want to be mean. Only to Matt I want to be mean. It's disheartening but it reminds me, and I'm glad that I'm here, to repeat, for people to not be left with that impression. That it's not like, oh, we got to give foreign aid. It would be great if nobody needed foreign aid. But we know that we are a country with incredible resources. We know that. And we have incredible responsibilities. And we do not shy away from them. It's part of why we do what we do. We want to be a part of the world. We know we can help, and we do. So it's not ever a part of that we just don't want to do something, and so we're not. It's can we? And can it be done properly? Is it aligned with what's great for the United States? And mostly also, certainly it is not used as a weapon. And I just want to say that as strongly as I possibly can. And as far as the nature of what's happening, we are asked often by many of you in different ways, is that there is a constant, regular commitment to Gaza, to the Gazan people, certainly to one of our strongest, if not most stalwart ally, Israel, who have, by the way, a new ambassador from the United States, Ambassador Mike Huckabee. So we're very excited about the future. We are working constantly to have a ceasefire and to change the trajectory on the ground. That has not stopped.